The show is called Extraordinary Rendition. Took place and opened at the Bemis Underground, an extension of the Bemis Center for Contemporary Arts, on November 19th in 2010. It really is a kind of a multifaceted installation and exhibition of drawings, new media, performance, and other installations that really address the concept of extraordinary rendition.
Extraordinary rendition, which is the practice of one country going into another country and essentially kidnapping somebody without anybody's knowledge, without the government's knowledge, our government's knowledge, their government's knowledge. Nobody over there knows anything about it. And then they take that person out of that country, give them to yet another country, because we don't torture, and then that way the other country can get whatever information we want from them. And then afterwards, they disappear or whatever they need to do with the individual afterwards.
We had performers at the various entry points. We had two checkpoints. One was at the main entry, where really we'd do bag checks if necessary, or we'd ask them ludicrous questions, or I think one of the popular ones was, you know, do you have Lucky Charms in your bag? Or, you know, there would be these sort of, you have Lucky Charms in your bag, or Honey Nut Cheerios, or, you know, asked just these sort of off-the-wall questions where you were really asked to not only answer the question, but maintain a sense of seriousness based on the question being asked and how it was being asked. We made people wait. We made people, you know, sort of take their coat off, put their coat back on, set their bag on the counter, do sort of mock scans of their belongings. And I think it was very impactful for people. They talk about that particular sequence of checkpoints coming into the space as memorable. You know, even in many cases more memorable than the torture scene that went on in the gallery. I think people talk about that. Then they kind of wait in a line, and they, you know, maybe get a drink along the way. We had the servers put little sugar pills in the wine or the beer, and not even talk about it. And oddly enough, I think people said, "Did you put something in my drink?" And they'd say, "Yes." Like, "Oh, okay." And they'd move on without really asking what went into their drink. Some people came back and asked for a drink without the sugar pill, but the second checkpoint then was sort of a check of the stamp that they would have received at the first checkpoint on their hand with a black light. We had a Jamie Burmeister piece that photographed them at that checkpoint.
Basically made a program that would photograph all of the people entering the show, and then basically it analyzed these people and sort of dictated who should be followed. It was sort of the idea with this is some sort of surveillance that was, you know, recording who's coming in so we can keep track of who's entering the show. And so that night, they sat everyone down in front of this camera, and they hit a button, and it took photographs of each person. And then later, as the show went on, we showed a video of these individual shots of each person, and sort of this randomly generated who was dangerous and who wasn't dangerous.
But when you come into the main gallery, you get what you expect. You expect to see drawings on a wall. The subject matter of the drawings is torture, and maybe you don't recognize it at first because really the drawings are large scale, they're very detailed, and really they're quite beautiful in their portrayal, even though the portrayal is of sort of these torture scenes.
The concept started with the drawings, but the idea was always that it wasn't the drawings that were the most important thing. The drawings kind of were a glossy version of what extraordinary rendition was, so it looks almost harmless, or it looks nice in a way. But then the cameras and the ropes all have to do with a surveillance type system. So the ropes are keeping you from the drawings, but they're also kind of keeping the people in the drawings away from you. The cameras are recording you. You kind of stand on the yellow feet there, and the cameras are focused on you, and then all of that footage is fed back to a surveillance system, and that surveillance system records everything. Everybody that's comes to the show records their reactions while they're looking at the drawings. And then back in that surveillance room, so it's not only about Extraordinary Rendition, it's also about the surveillance that's been going on. So there's an entire surveillance room, and there's walls of monitors that have, there's 12 different main videos, and then there's the 8 cameras that are feeding footage back there, 7 drawings and then 1 camera in the corner. And there's another camera that's actually doing a live feed to the web. So anybody, in fact, during the opening, somebody in Reno was watching the live feed of the opening while it was happening here in Omaha, which was nice. And then the main projection is the one directly behind me, which is actually, I mean, there's an obvious illusion happening there, but the more subtle stuff is that it's actually Air Force One flying around, and it's actually flying around First National, so it's actually flying around the very top of the Omaha skyline. So on 9/11, that's where Bush came here to kind of escape or be protected or whatever. That's what you see when you're inside the interrogation room. When you're outside the interrogation room, all of the light that's collected from the projection is collected in little boxes inside this wall construction. So on the other side of the wall, as the light gets mixed and finally makes it to the last screen, it's a limited amount of information. It's like a pixelated image. You're only getting a portion of the picture, not the whole picture. So the idea is that inside the surveillance room, you understand more of what's happening. Outside in the gallery area, you're not really fully informed about everything. So it's this wall that's meant to kind of visually give a sense of that limited information that gets to you when you're not behind the scenes, so to speak.